Solvitur Ambulando, The Adventures of Steve and Dixie by Stephen Breakstone. Copyright 2025, snippets from my journal. September 10th, 1986, Tuesday, the Brady Farm, Cimarron, Kansas. With Bernard Hammerschmidt, a man as big as his name, I started the morning loading irrigation pipe onto a trailer hitch. We then broke up some cement laying in a field and loaded it onto a truck bed. I suggested a novel way of breaking up the cement slab by using the tractor to lift and flip over the concrete and let gravity break it up instead of using a sledgehammer. I think I impressed Bernard. He liked the idea, and that's what we did. We were creating a space for a new truck scale. After lunch, I was taught how to load an implement onto a tractor, drive the tractor, and how to undercut a field to rid it of weeds. My job was to clear the field to make more room to plant the winter wheat. Delma and Bernard thought I was nuts because I was so excited to be driving a tractor back and forth for 5 hours on one large section. I was gleaming and bouncing just at the idea of it. I was a kid with a new toy, but it is something they have been doing every year for around 3 or 4 decades. September 11th, 1986, Wednesday. Woke up today and got right back onto the tractor, finished one field and headed for another. The Brady Farm seems well to do. A section is 640 acres and 1 square mile. There are a lot of sections. I took an hour for lunch and then I stayed on the tractor until about 7:30 p.m., about 11 hours. This is really a thrill. A city boy driving a tractor around on a real farm, working a field that is used to grow real grain that will feed the world. Boy, Dad was sure excited when I called him. It was so wonderful to hear his voice pick up after his introductory, hello, and he realizes it's me. Side note, there was no caller ID in those days. I told him that I was working on a farm and it thrills him as much as it does me. I also told him that if I couldn't find a job when harvesting is complete, I might have to fly home for the rest of the winter. No, he said adamantly. You'll find something out there. It's not that he didn't want me home, but now he likes and prefers my adventures and experiences. This is from the same man who wanted me to just fly up to Alaska, or fly to any city for that matter. But after walking 1,000 safe and prosperous miles, having people from all over the country send letters and newspaper articles to him and Mom about their son and his dog, and now hearing about their son on his farm, Dad and Mom were becoming as excited about my journey as I have been. They saw the light. Not only are they now supportive about my decision and my walk, but they're also enthusiastic and pushed me on. Side note, I'm sure my parents, Pearl and Arnie, would have preferred me to have a real job, actually preferred me to have a respectable career. But if I wasn't going to go in a normal direction, which I think was a foregone conclusion long before I graduated college, I think they began to feel more comfortable that whatever I was doing with a focus and a commitment, and keeping relatively safe. My parents have passed on now, but I do wish I could have interviewed them for this series. 11 hours on a tractor. Dixie has been keeping herself occupied back at the bunkhouse. I think she is trying to make friends with the cats, but I'm not sure they want to be her friend. Thank goodness I'm working for a man who has enclosed cabs on his tractors. And they are air-conditioned and have AM/FM radios. In 3 days, I have been on these things almost 30 hours. I work the field, eat lunch in or besides the tractor, work the field, go back to the bunkhouse, eat dinner, sleep, get up, work the field, etc. Mostly by myself. Not the very stuff of intellectual expansion. Well, perhaps the idea is to get some intellectual expansion. Or perhaps philosophical expansion. If I drive tractors, well, in moderate amounts. Perhaps for just a few months? September 13th, 1986, Friday. I spoke with Delmer today. He is such a nice man. I have hardly spoken to him since day one, though. He and his wife, Chris, and their children, 13-year-old Ryan and 16-year-old Lisa, live in a very comfortable house on this farm. Next to the house is a double-wide trailer where Bernard and his lovely wife Renetta live. Then there is the aluminum bunkhouse, presently for Dixie and me. It's 1 bedroom, a bathroom, and a large kitchen area with a decent-sized table. Quite comfortable for this one person and his dog. I am no longer a celebrity. I am no longer especially interesting. Well, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but I am here to work, not to entertain with stories about my travels and especially my great dog carrying a backpack. I am just a hired hand, and that's just fine with me. But what a quick shift from a few days ago. The wheat had been cut before I arrived, and now the next big thing, Delma tells me, is the Milo and then the sunflower. That shouldn't take more than about 8 weeks. On this plot of land are two large aluminum buildings that store all the farm equipment and vehicles. And then there are three grain storage bins. After that, as far as you can see in any direction, are one of two things: Milo, which is grain sorghum used as cattle feed, or giant sunflowers with humongous pods. The Milo is just about ready to cut. The hybrid sunflowers, that need about another month or so to be harvested, have seeds used for oil, not for eating. The pods have a radius of 8 to 10 inches. Man, they are so big and almost too beautiful to believe. And this has become our world. Delma mentioned his brother Joe might be able to use me to help build a new house in a couple of months. That sounds interesting. What to do after the harvest is complete is a concern of mine, but it is much too early to worry about. I should only take this one day at a time. So why worry? Yet, I can't wait until the last minute either. I think I'm going through the same nonsense I was going through when I had no stimulation in Oklahoma. Driving back and forth all day on the fields, my mind seems to replay the same things over and over and over and over again. I don't want to wait until the last minute to figure something out. I wish I could take my own advice and not worry. Just be in the here and now. Things, ever since leaving New York and the safety and the comfort of my family home, have worked out. Let's face it, I am successful in everything I have tried. And now I'm even working on a working farm, just as I hoped and planned. Okay, there are no farm animals, and it's only for a couple of months, and I do not spend much time with anybody else except Dixie, as usual, but otherwise all my dreams and desires have come true. Side note, it's interesting for me to read that I wrote in my journals that all my dreams and desires have come true, when also stating missing aspects of those dreams and desires. Obviously a contradiction. But I explained that as an example of how my cockeyed, look at the bright side, turn lemons into lemonade, optimistic personality worked. No, and still works, as my current people have noticed, comment on, and tease me about. I think that these are all vital traits, though, that are needed for perseverance, especially when one is pushing himself by choice, as opposed to pushing themselves, for fear of death. So, in other words, to just keep on keeping on, to accomplish a goal, even if the journey is not always fun. One thought that was on my mind at the time was that I bought into the concept that sometimes the journey was more important than the destination. But sometimes what went through my mind was, what if the journey isn't fun and the end goal was not guaranteed? What then? What's to keep you going? Well, for me, what kept me going was that there was a lot of highs over the last few months and 1,000 miles of walking, but also a bunch of lows. But fortunately, most of the lows weren't too low. But as an example of a low that wasn't too low, the last few hundred miles, walking 15 or so miles a day on state roads and through small towns, hardly meeting anyone, dealing with the weather, dealing with Dixie's well-being, well, it was all just becoming very uninspiring. And I think both Dixie and I were walking on fumes. So getting to work on a real farm, that was like a dream come true. That was a high. But then driving back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on a field 10 hours a day or so, sometimes more, by myself, day after day, wasn't really proving to be as much fun or stimulating as I had hoped. The reality that I created was very challenging for me, physically, of course, but most often emotionally. That was the biggest challenge that I had to deal with on a regular basis. But intellectually, I knew, well, strongly believed, that I was doing something that was very special and would be meaningful for the rest of my life. So, to come full circle, how did I deal with these highs and lows and all the contradictions? Well, if you're me, you consciously choose to look at the bright side, you focus on the positive, and you appreciate whatever blessings and good things you do have and have experienced. And of course, sometimes you even lie to yourself and tell yourself that all your dreams and desires are coming true. September 14th, 1986, Sunday. What do I think about all day long on the tractor? I think about how computerized radio stations are disgusting. Listening to KDCK is as pleasurable and personable as listening to a video game. A robotic voice stating, "That was the Monkees," followed up by Daryl Hall and John Oates. Up soon, the Doobie Brothers. After a few songs and a few commercials, the robotic sounding robot DJ starts all over again with 3 new songs. Does generic radio indicate technological progress? Unfortunately, it's the only pop station I can get out here. Otherwise, as I have long ago discovered, the strongest radio signals are usually Christian stations. That just doesn't work for me. I think about how scary it is that I'm constantly hearing about this war on drugs, war on crime, war on illiteracy all over the news. What is this obsession and preoccupation with the word war? I find it very frightening. It reminds me of a fraternity in college that came off as being very militant as they marched around campus in military like uniforms. They said they were warriors of peace, but what they said and how they acted seemed very contradictory to me. I think about how wonderful it is that in the last few years we have increased our national patriotism and are feeling good about ourselves again. But is it getting carried away? Overall, I am fond of President Reagan, but why is he raising such anti Soviet feelings? It seems to me that all he will raise is aggressive behavior. It's sort of like when I took karate in my freshman year. I was feeling confident and tough and was almost hoping that someone would try to attack me. I was ready to kick some butt. I think we humans have shown that we really don't need much motivation to start beating up on one another. Therefore, I worry about feeling too good about ourselves and breeding hate towards others and tossing around words like war like it's a frisbee. Does it ever seem that people and nations sometimes fight because it is something to do? I have heard a quote: "There is nothing like a war to unite a nation." Boredom, monotony, restlessness, spiritually unfulfilled, and well, let's just go kick some butt to raise morale. I think it happens on the streets. I think it happens in governments. Fighting is something to do. Now that is scary. Side note: I looked into this quote, but all I found was that AI states that no one is known to have said it exactly. But German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, the author George Orwell writing about a dystopian future, and Nazi Hermann Goering are some of others, or some people who have expressed similar sentiments. I think I would like to get the TV in the bunkhouse fixed. I get reception, but only sometimes. I sure am getting lonely. I think that the loneliness is getting to me. These are some of the things I think about. It would probably be easier if I could make my mind go blank. Bernard says that he doesn't even listen to the radio as he drives the tractor back and forth as many hours a day as I do. I would go nuts. Actually, I think I might be going nuts. September 21st, 1986, Sunday. I don't mind the work or hate the work. I don't love it either, though. Of course, the tractor is not as nearly as exciting as it was on day one. Now I understand why Delmer and Bernard thought I was nuts. The newness is over and the excitement is worn thin. Oh, I still get enjoyment out of it, but for its meaning in my life more than the actual physical action of driving a tractor. Yesterday I met Richard Brady, another Brady brother. He invited Dixie and me to come to his house for dinner and to spend the night. What a relief from aloneness. Richard is a man in his 40s, divorced and with children. Along with his 6 fellow Brady brothers, he grew up on the family farm, the land that is still shared by Delmer and the others. He is now only a part-time farmer and also owns a farm truck store in Dodge City. He is educated, friendly, and has that certain wisdom and understanding simplicity. He's also a chain smoker. We spoke about the hardships of being a farmer, the boredom and the monotony and repetition of work in the fields, the vulnerability of the non controllable elements of the weather. If it rains too much, or not enough, or if it rains when you have to cut, or if the sun burns the crop, or if it doesn't get cold enough in the winter for the winter wheat. And then there is the big question if you're going to get a good price for your produce. It seems impossible not to have some of these problems every season. So why would you even want to be a farmer? I asked. Well, it's true that all those challenges are a very real concern every year, he replied, smiling. But there is so much good. And there are many ways to look at it. To start with, it could be a pretty good life. It's not always 11-hour days, just at certain times of the year. There's no boss hanging over your head constantly. Often you could take a day off whenever you want to. You're out in the open, in the fields, and not some stuffy office or city. Those are very attractive qualities to many people. Of course, Richard was talking about the farmers and the landowners, not necessarily the farm hands, but some of those points are relevant to the hands too. Richard continued, and a lot of those headaches are often business headaches, not always nature headaches. A good profitable farmer has to have a good head for business, not just a green thumb, so to speak. He has to know what he can afford, where and how to buy everything from seed to implements and vehicles, how to store what he raises, and know when to actually sell it. Farming is just like any other business in that sense. Those who are better at it continue to do it, and those who are not good at it fail. And all those challenges can be very enjoyable. But no, no, it's not an easy life. Richard's philosophical mind wandered beyond the fields. An evening of his delicious and greatly appreciated homemade tortillas included philosophical conversations about man, nature, environmental concerns, and balances that take place with and without humans, and how he is optimistic that the world will be just fine. I'll sum it up with these thoughts of his. For a while, and in some instances, the bad wins, and then for a time, the good wins. It makes life easier to deal with when you understand that there really is a balance. Nature has its own balance and ultimately takes care of itself. Whether humans will always be around to see that nature is another story. Later, living out on the working prairie develops a different mind than in the concrete jungle of a city or even a small town. Because there is so little distraction out here, every night I watch the sunset. There's nothing to block the sun dropping into the crops. I mean, it takes forever for the light to fade into pure night because there's nothing stopping the light waves from reaching you. And if we're lucky enough for there to be some clouds in the sky, we are treated to a vast mural of ever changing colors and hues for what seems like hours on end. One has to be comatose not to feel it and be affected. It's just so powerful. Cameras just can't capture the here and now of the experience. Side note, I think good writers could describe such a sky and sunset that leaves readers' imaginations with a vivid picture. I am not such a writer. My journal entries were created to remind me of what I experienced, not so much to recreate the picture in my head. But when I read these entries, in fact, I no longer even have to read them. The feelings those experiences and views conceived are a part of my very being, even if I can't describe them to others. I consider myself to be a very spiritual person, with the foundation of that spirituality built upon layers of experiences of being outdoors in the world that God, or whatever word you want to use, created. Later. Dixie is such a happy dog. I think she appreciates not walking 15 miles a day in the burning sun. I think she is very much aware of how good she has it. I do think she would rather that another dog was here to play with, though. The last dog that lived on the farm got run over not too many months ago. She's an inspiration to me when I'm lonely and a comfort when I wonder about what to do when I leave the farm. Later. Occasionally, Delma and I have a chance to talk as he drives me from one field to another that needs work, especially in the mornings to get me back to where we left the tractor the night before. I recall that Delmer told me that he was put on a tractor when he was about 10 or 12 years old. He is now in his late 30s, I think. The tractors back then had no cab, no hydraulics, and of course, no radio. It didn't matter to me, he says. I was young and I was energetic, and I had enough energy to do the blades and the levers and markers by hand. And having no cab made for a great tan. He told me this on one of our short trips together, and he got quiet for a moment. And then he added, but now, forget it. Without air conditioning, I wouldn't even try it. When you don't know what you're missing, it's no big deal. But to go back in time, that's not easy, fun, or preferable. September 25th, 1986, Thursday. Not all farm work is on a tractor. Sometimes it includes picking up about 1,000 bricks buried in the ground, throwing them into a pile, throwing them onto a truck, throwing them off the truck, and then piling them up nicely. Sometimes it includes lifting and moving dozens of irrigation pipe off the ground onto a trailer and onto winter storage piles. And some work includes manually scooping wheat from one truck to another. Well, actually, I don't remember why I had to do that, but it had to be done. And some work, especially during harvest, includes making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or cream cheese sandwiches the night before a 12-hour day in a tractor. A tractor I sit in waiting for Bernard to fill my attached grain cart full of the Milo from his combine. Side note, a combine is a tractor or machine that reaps the plant, separates the seed from the chaff, sending the seed to a bin and throwing the chaff back onto the field. It's a pretty cool and efficient system. I mean, we never stop moving. Bernard continues the harvesting as I drive alongside the combine as Bernard flips a switch and an arm from the combine reaches out to transfer the seed to the grain cart I am pulling with the tractor. And when my cart is full, Bernard retracts the arm and I drive the cart over to the massive double clutch hauling truck and transfer the Milo into that. And then when that truck is full, I drive it over to a cattle feed yard or a co-op. Ultimately, the Milo is eaten for the cattle's final fattening up so that the rest of us could enjoy our T-bones and McDonald's. And we'll do this until the harvest of the Milo is complete. A quick thought. This is the least annoying job I've ever had. Only, it's not so much of a job as it is a lifestyle. That's it for now. Peace.